Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the Shadows Over Karakoth event, in which the Shadow Wraith is added to the game. So this week is a pretty big one. We finally have everything from version 8.5 taking effect. One of the more noteworthy ones being the Flower Dragons that are now in Soulforge, as well, of course, as the new Guild War system. So as far as the new Guild War system is concerned, we do have the first ever Guild Wars coming in for Guild Wars number 2, or whatever you want to call it, now that they finally did it after about a year of not having Guild Wars. It is finally back in the game. The first Guild Wars will be starting in a few days on Thursday. The restriction for it will be Broken Spire, meaning that every single day you will have to use a Broken Spire composition team. We will be showing teams in this video, as well as all the teams for the entire week, but you have to use specifically restriction from Broken Spire. As far as defending, that is still a mechanic. Basically what you have to do with your defensive teams is go and have your entire guild spread out, where you can end up picking one of various different keeps, and then go and end up defending the keep between all 6 of the different colors. And they have different compositions. Overall, the best 2 seem to be green or blue, but depending on the event week, there might be some other situations where you end up doing it based on the overall composition. But basically, you want every single person going into a different area up to 3. With your guild, you have to try as however many you have, 27, 28, 29, 30 or so. You need to go and try to spread 3 into every single location. And of course, if you have more than 27, you will have a few spears. This will end up giving you the maximum amount of bonus when defending. If you are going to be defending in a certain location, basically the main thing to know is across this river. If you are earlier in the game or don't have as much as the average person in your guild, you probably want to be on the left side here, closer to where the gate is. All of these over here are the main ones that you want to go and fill out. But if you are later in the game and have literally everything maxed out, pretty much everything maxed out, super high stats, you know, in the higher end of the guild, you want to go and be over on the right side, over near the end, near where the palace is, or even on the palace itself. The main reason for this is you do have increasingly more stats as you go deeper, and of course having more stats as a percent is more beneficial if you already have more stats to begin with, as it's increasing even more by the extra percent that you're going to be getting. I forget exactly how far it goes up by, but I believe it's like 5% or so all the way at the beginning, up to about 20% all the way near the end. So you definitely want to have your better players in the main last area. But essentially, when you're doing the opposite of that in a few days, when you do the offensive, of course, you will be doing a Broken Spire offensive team against whatever the defense is. You will have to then do all your fights leading up to that, where you will always start from the gate and then have to go do 4 additional fights leading up to that, for of course a total of 5 every single day. Keep in mind, in order to get extra points, you do evenly have to distribute across your guild the battles. I assume it'll show once we start doing them about how many battles are distributed everywhere, but basically you want to go down the path, if a bunch of people in your guild have already been doing battles, that will end up netting you more points. As every single set that your entire guild kills 1 of each, you will end up getting an additional 1,000 points for your score. So you basically just take whatever path will end up clearing that out. You could also initially, of course, if you're doing the earlier ones, end up taking out whatever the easiest path is, but eventually everyone in the guild will have to go through some amount of every single one of the battles leading all the way up to the palace. Beyond all that, anything else to mention as far as rewards? There are 2 different reward systems. One based on when you personally win, and one based on when the entire guild wins. What we're looking at right over here with this thing in the rewards tab is when you personally win. So even if you're in a very small guild, or in a guild that you know almost for sure will not end up winning, you will still be able to get every single reward here as long as your performance is good in the guild. So basically, there are 4 days for 5 battles each, so a total of 20. And if you win at least 18 of them, which is, what is that, 95% win rate, or sorry, 90% win rate. So you need a 90% win rate. And if you have at least a 90% win rate, you will end up getting every single reward. On the free side, there's a few knickknacks things. The only ones that are really noteworthy is at 14 wins, you do get a Silver Glory Orb, and at 18 wins, you do have enough to get the first level of shininess on whatever the new troop is. Or not the new troop, but the new shiny legendary. It is basically how they're going to be introducing shiny legends into Gems of War. They mentioned a while back when they did shinies that they'll eventually add legends and mythics, and this is the first situation we are getting a legend variant of that. Additionally, if you wish to go and spend $5 or regional equivalents, you do get a few additional rewards beyond just all the rewards at the bottom that you end up seeing here, which is enough to get a maxed out shiny, which in itself is already insanely good. We also get a gold medal, a orb of disappointment, and a few other things mixed between. But beyond that, we also have ourselves the ability to skip tiers. So this is kind of broken, because you can still get all rewards without even doing Guild War, or if you lose by a lot. So what I mean by this is, let's say, I don't know, we do like average, we get like 50% win rate, and we have 10 wins out of 20. For 20 gems each, if you've purchased the thing, you could just skip tiers and just buy all the way there. So you could end up spending, in that situation, 200 gems to go all the way to the end. Or if you did literally no guild war, if you don't even want to touch it, you can spend 400 gems. If you're in like a smaller guild and you just don't want to bother with it, but still get all the rewards, you can spend 400 gems, $5, and just instant have every single reward, which is kind of strong. So yeah, it's definitely really I would say almost pay to win in the literal sense that you're buying wins, which is kind of funny. These are literally buying wins to go and offset whatever you didn't end up getting in order to go get a troop that gives you additional stats. And of course, aside from all the extra stats that you get from all these glory orbs, you're also getting all the additional stats, of course, the shininess, in this case to Shagra. Whereas, of course, the glory orbs you could use on anything. You use on Sugar, you use on a mythic, you use on whatever you want, as it does give you enough to go and max out both a troop in its elite level, but also enough to, of course, get the full shininess of whatever the select troop is, in this case being Shagra. Beyond that, there are daily other rewards, so every single time that your guild wins, so these are all the personal rewards, but as a guild, if your entire guild ends up winning, you do end up getting additional points. Remember earlier when I was talking about the defend distribution, as long as you have 3 defenders in every single location, you will end up getting the full amount of defender bonus, and doing this combined with your leaderboard bonus will end up giving you your total bonus that you end up getting every single time your guild wins. The main reward that you end up getting for winning, there's a few other knick-knack loots like silver marks and gold, but the main one that you get is 10 gold marks, and that 10 gold marks is boosted by every single bonus that you have here. So whatever your guild defend total is, as well as your leaderboard bonus, which is basically just wherever your guild is on leaderboard, combining those together as a percent is how much extra gold marks you get in total. So let's say in total we have, I don't know, 200%. Let's say we have about 200% once we add everything up. That would then make it so we would get 30 gold marks every time we won a guild war as a guild, which means if we won all 4 of them, that would be, and that's hypothetical, that would basically be a deed book, since of course gold marks are primarily used to go and transfer over to deed books as far as upgrading all the kingdoms and everything. But it's honestly not that bad. Obviously, depending on where your guild is, that could be higher or lower. And keep in mind that reward is guild-based, like, you know, actually winning the guild war. That is not personal-based, so it is possible that you could do really good yourself. But, you know, if the guild overall isn't doing as good, you would potentially not get that reward at all. Because if you lost every single day that guild war, I don't believe there's actually any reward at all. Like, if you got all 18 wins, or, you know, all 20 wins and got your 18th reward here, but your guild lost every single guild war day, I'm pretty sure you don't get anything extra at all from that new system. Whereas it could be the other way around. You could also do really average or really bad at your own personal battles, but as long as the guild is doing good enough overall, you might end up getting the extra gold marks from the wins, which is boosted by your overall morale bonus. But yeah, overall, honestly, I'm looking forward to see how Guild Wars ends up going. Be interesting to see how it pans out. We will be streaming it every single day, by the way, here on the channel as well. So look forward to that. If you need team suggestions, everything else. With that being said, let's actually go over the teams. I want to go over all the teams right now, might as well. And then we'll go over all the many other things, like the dragon eggs and everything else, because gosh, there's still a lot going on this week. So first things first, Broken Spire. So every single guild war this week it will be the same offensive team. You'll probably be facing different teams as far as defensively, but all 4 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which is replacing the weekend event, it simply is the weekend event. Arena got replaced and Guild War will be that weekend event. So that's the only thing you have to worry about, those 5 days battles every day. It is a daily, so you do have to do them every day. If you miss it a day and everything else, it will count as 0. So it is now a daily, so do be mindful of that. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for Guild War. But beyond that, as far as teams, of course, we're restricted to only Broken Spire troops and Broken Spire weapons. With that being said, the main team I'm probably going to be using is a double mana accumulation team into Meteoridian and Infernus. Ogress, because it's really tanky and has backup summon, as well as a lot of mana accumulation. If they somehow have something that makes you go out of position, it will always go back to first slot to reposition. We have ourselves Hero, just doing standard mana accumulation, but also backup summon. You do maintain more points if you make sure you win with all 4 troops alive. This is very similar to OG Guild War, where you can maintain pretty much your entire score just by winning and making sure everything on your team has survived. There are a few other parameters, like winning in X amount of turns and everything like that, that can give you a little bit extra, but for the most part, still very beneficial to make sure that by the end of the battle, you have 4 troops on your team. Of course, that does not mean you have to have a resummon option. However, it can be a good backup plan in case they just completely snipe out one of your troops with skull spam or something similar. So to be able to have a backup plan to make sure you don't end up dying ends up working out really well. So not required to have resummon, but if you could put it on your team without really hindering it, is definitely worth considering. Beyond that, Meteoridian, if you end up having this is the Celestial Red Dragon. Red, right? Yeah, red. Celestial Red Dragon. This ends up just doing a ton of damage, and that's pretty much the main thing we're using it for, and an Infernus to offset that damage. This also allows you to be able to go and bypass a merge, as a lot of teams, of course, will be deliberately trying to counter out Broken Spire teams, because we already know what every single team is going to be. It's going to be some kind of Broken team Spire composition, so there's going to be a lot of really anti-Broken Spire things, like things that could do 2 times damage to Brown if you're doing like a War Gear area, or the things that can end up doing, you know, extra to red, extra to brown, like denying red gems and doing extra damage to Brown are probably going to be 2 of the more common things, as most teams within this kingdom are really, really red and brown dependent, either using it or mana accumulating heavily off of it. So brown and red anti-counters are going to be really common across every single one of the defend teams that you're going to be seeing, as well as the defend teams that you're going to be creating. And actually, I should say defend team. You only ever have to create 1 defend team now. It's actually kind of nice. In the previous format, of course, you had to create 6, but this time around, you only have to create 1 singular team. So it should be a lot easier to end up doing, especially earlier on in the game when you might not have as many options, because you just go to one of the ones lower in the corner and just go and build out for one of those, and it shouldn't matter as much, and you don't need to build up like 6 solid teams like you did before, only 1. But whatever one you do end up building this week, of course, you want to try to counter out Broken Spires. Also keep in mind, these are just all offensive teams, not the defensive teams. As if we covered all defensive teams, there is what? If we covered 2 per slot, it would be 18 per thing, which means it would be 18 times 6. Whatever number that is. Wow, that is like 100 and math. I can't math right now. It's slightly over 100. That's a lot of teams, which is most of all we're just doing offensive teams, since there are a lot of different defensive teams. You only have to cover 1, so it should be relatively easy to end up setting one ultimately. But we'll probably mention them occasionally here on streams, occasionally here and that. Going over through the days, we'll probably see a bunch too on like day 1 and everything. But I would say defend team doesn't matter nearly as much as your offensive teams, more than ever, given that you're only contribute 1 singular defend to the whole array. But anyways, so Broken Spire for the second team. This is a skull-oriented team that you can end up using. It's pretty much going all in on skull, of course, using Shegra. I'm not sure exactly if you can end up getting the shiny tokens as you go, but keep in mind, if you do get the paid side, you do immediately get 10 shiny tokens for Shegra, which means you will be shiny level 1 on your Shegra immediately, which should just do the same thing that it did before. Does it actually have it here? But yeah, it should be 1 lower mana cost, 1 lower mana cost, and upgrade to spell. I'm not sure if we know what the upgrade to spell is, but if I had to guess, it probably creates 1 or 2 more red gems compared to now. So it probably creates 8 or 9 red gems, then converts all reds to skulls. So you'll be able to have 1 lower mana cost immediately if you do the paid side. So if you are doing the paid side, you do have a lot stronger potentially skull spam team, as midway through the week you will have a level 2 Shegra with a stronger ability and lower mana cost, and literally from day 1 you will end up having a 1 lower mana cost Shegra. So that's another part where the pay to win comes in ever so slightly, unless it comes in at the end. There is a chance that all the rewards come in at the end and you won't be able to do that. But based on how it looks, it seems like you would immediately be able to get value on your Shegra. Luckily, at least this time around, Shegra is probably not going to be meta. While you can go down the Skull Spam route where we're using Doomed Club into Shegra, into triple damage burning, I don't think it's going to be as popular as the cast builds. Especially since some people might end up building Entangle and stuff like that, and this place, other than Shekra's Heart, has very few ways to really deal with Entangle, as far as like cleansing out your entire team and everything. So if the enemy team has even a single Entangle, like if they're using Elemental as hero class, this team is already like off the table immediately if they have even a single Entangle. But keep in mind, you might want to still have them available, because if you do want to go run Skull Spam team and they don't have any counter to it, it could be worthwhile to end up bringing it out, especially if you're not in the green area where you get automatic Entangle and everything. But you're going to need to switch out your team generally when doing Guild Wars now, because every single one's going to be hard countering a very, very specific thing, and you need to make sure you have other available options to end up going through whenever you do. As the new Guild War format, while only having to use the same team offensively the entire time, you're going to have to adjust it a lot more than you normally would. Because I feel like a lot of days, let's say on like Blue Day, the meta got so defined that you could pretty much run the same team for like all 5 battles and you'd probably be fine a lot of the times. But this new Guild War system, you're definitely going to need to adjust a lot more often, as the array of defense that you're going to be seeing is way wider compared to before due to how all the restricted defense is working. Anyways, as far as the cheap team, we're using Ogre, Shegra's Heart with double Magma Dragon. As far as cheapness, this is a rare that you can end up getting very easily just in any drop table. The Shegra's Heart you end up getting automatically just from getting brown and blue hero mastery. If you don't have it yet, you'll probably get it by around level 200-ish or so, just by going and leveling up, putting into brown blue masteries, and you'll eventually just have this sitting in your inventory for free. Ends up creating a bunch of red gems, and most importantly, this is pretty much the only way, if not the only way, to actually cleanse. You might even use this on some high rarity teams, even though I didn't show it with them. This is pretty much your main way to cleanse. Obviously, if it gets silenced, that's a bit of a problem. However, this is your main cleanse option when it comes to Broken Spire. So if you're up against a team that is really status heavy and you feel like you're going to need a counter to it, you might want to put Hero with Shegra's Heart onto your team. Unfortunately, the rest of its ability is not the greatest, but better than nothing. 7 red gems gives you a chance of extra turning while feeding into at least something on your team, as you're guaranteed to have at least 1 red on your team. And it gives a bunch of life to a random ally. Unfortunately, a pretty trivial amount, but you're mostly using it for the 4 times cleanse. I guess it also has all the other little perks, but it's pretty small overall. A little bit of mana here and there. You're mostly using it for the 4 times cleanse. And of course, Magma Dragon. While this is a legend, it is a legend from a faction, so it is very easy to get whenever. We even have time to prepare for it because, of course, the Guild War does not start until Thursday. So if you have 0 Magma Dragons right now at this exact moment in time, there's still plenty of time to go get it. Simply go do the Tuesday faction event tomorrow and be doing your daily 3 factions every single day, and go throw all your Chaos Shards at the Fire Rift Underworld faction. If you go throw it in the portal there, you are almost guaranteed within that time to go get yourself 2 Magma Dragons if you don't already have it. A really good chance that you end up getting it there, and yeah, you simply just do that, and then boom, you got yourself a team. It ends up having a brown-red storm while also having an okay amount of damage. You're normally using a Marso for your storm. Obviously, if you have a better offset like an Infernus, or really honestly any damage source that you can end up putting here, definitely replace it out instead of Magma Dragon. However, this is pretty much the worst case scenario as far as a super budget. But the next upgrade to this is definitely replace out 1 of the 2 Magma Dragons for a better damage source, either Infernus or the red Gem Dragon or whatever you have laying around that would be able to serve the role. And those are the 3 teams. Anyways, let's go over the rest of the teams starting from the top. So the invasion event this week is Undead, of course. Pretty standard as per usual. Literally just go find whatever undead troops you have that end up doing extra to the towers. You do want to make sure you're using the Abraxas though, as he will end up giving you double score for every tower you kill, and will also have double magic. But it plays similar to most of the events where you just go and have things that can do 5 times damage to the towers. Go and just poke with them. Have a little bit of extra mana accumulation. We're using Pharaoh Kefir here for even more. Also converts into brown, which is pretty nice. But of course being used for the 2 explodes every single turn. You can also use 50% Mana Star. I don't think I actually showed that on either team here, because it's technically like a mid-rarity thing, but there is a 50% mana start for this place as far as undeads are concerned. It is the, let me go bring that up real quick, because I don't think either team has it, but it is definitely worth mentioning. I just felt like it didn't really fit into any of the teams here, and it itself doesn't have too good of ability. But there is 50% mana start to all undead, so if you do want to end up utilizing that on any team that you're ever going to be running here for this event, is definitely worth considering, as it will give both your 2 tower killers a 50% mana star, as well as, you know, anything else that you have on the team. But as far as the lower rarity team here, we're going a lot more skull-oriented. We're using our Graveseer to transform green to purple to go get our mana right at the start of battle. Ideally, this will feed both into the guy that has 2 times damage to towers, as well as, or, you know, 2 times extra magic, on top of the 5 times extra damage. But we also have Skeleton here. Skeleton has auto extra turn with 7 skull creation. This is going to be used in order to go and keep poking them. So of course, every single time you poke them, you're pretty much 1-shotting, 2-shotting whenever you go to the skulls. So this Skeleton will be able to help out a lot with that. You can even go down the other route if you really want to risk it and go 1 Arbrexis into like 2 Skeletons. Immediately get everything up with Graveseer, and then just kind of just go crazy from there. So a couple different ways that you can end up doing it depending on your route, but this is a little bit safer just to make sure that your team ends up surviving. You can also offset with Hero onto your team if you so choose, but you will have to give up either one of your tower killers or the Skeleton to be able to do so, as you definitely want to keep the Arbraxis and your main mana accumulation option. As far as the faction event, this is a brown-purple restriction for that of Dugoroth. As far as that is concerned, we could use a pretty standard Atlanta team, just running Black Manacle, double Atlanta into Leprechaun, just a quick kill with that. It's even lasted, I believe, even longer than 100 now, now that we have this very broken Atlanta ever since she got buffed. If you do Black Manacle, double Atlanta, I guess it depends on your stats, but I believe that could go to like 110, 120, somewhere around there. But, of course, still a 20 to 100 team. But, yeah, ends up working out really well. Atlanta, a lot of fun. Pretty sure a lot of you have tried it since she's been buffed about a month or two ago, but if you haven't yet, definitely make sure to do so, as it is really, really strong and helps fill a lot of holes where you normally wouldn't use like Rowain or something else, or in this case even Guard's Avatar. Actually, no, you could use the Guard's Avatar build here. I just didn't show it just to make it a little bit cheaper, but yeah, you can run Guard's Avatar, quick kill, Resurquat and Hadley and everything, as he only needs Brown. Anyways, beyond that, as far as the high rarity team, we're just doing a Hiking Iron Good Zolgoth quick kill team. As far as pure faction is concerned, of course, we have to use things only from the Dugoroth faction. With that being said, we're just basically spamming a legend. We're using Deep Golem because it has a barrier, ends up exploding a gem, barriers an ally for each goal destroyed, and then gains a bunch of life while having a 50% score reduction. So we're basically just using that, trying to tank up, getting everything as tanky as possible, and then this guy just goes and does heavy true damage the entire time. One fun gimmick of this guy, which I wish they would have added on more troops, and still hope they do in the future, he ends up stunning a random enemy when an enemy casts a spell. If they add this for freeze and other mechanics, imagine this for freeze or silence. They haven't done it yet, but imagine the day they do. Because that would be really funny. They would have to put it on a mythic because it would be so broken. But I'm still waiting on the day that they do this for freeze or silence. Because stun, yeah, that's okay. Like, you know, be able to stun when a enemy casts. But it'd be greatest if you could end Infinite Loop with silence or other things. Obviously, they'd probably be blessed with Wand and everything like that. So even in that situation, it probably wouldn't do too much ultimately. However, hey, it would have a chance. It'd be better than stun. Not that stun is bad, but you know, specifically if the enemy is casting, you want to be stopping them from casting. And what better way than freeze and silence? But no troop has it yet, but soon, eventually. But yeah, it's a fun gimmick, but they've only used it for this troop. I'm really surprised they have not done it to anything else. They haven't even done it to other weaker things yet. They just haven't redone this yet, ever. They haven't done it for freeze, they haven't done it for silence, but they also haven't done it for like lamer things, like bleed or poison or something. Like, they haven't done it at all. Obviously, they should do it for something that's actually good, so it's actually usable. But I'm really surprised that's the only troop that has the mechanic. I don't think there's another troop in all of the game that specifically does something like this when an enemy casts a spell. There's some like gain an armor or some other things like that, but that barely counts. Like, as far as stats effects are concerned, he's the only one. But hopefully that will change in the future. As far as the Sorcerer class, this is the Thursday class event. Pretty standard, just run whatever the restriction is. This one specifically being Damon from Karakoth, so we're using some mana link to go and get over mana, and just simply using a power purple into whatever your best purple weapon is, and you're good to go. In this case, we're just using Black Manacle. As far as Underspire is concerned, this is specifically Karakoth team and weapon. So as far as Karakoth is concerned, we do, of course, if you have access to it, Zolgoth. So it should be a pretty easy Underspire this week, as you can just Zolgoth insta-kill everything. Biggest issue, as per usual, is going to be mana accumulation. Luckily, we do have an okay mana accumulation option. We have Convert into purple, so we could use that to go get Elder Dragon up. Elder Dragon creates a bunch of brown gems. Those brown gems can then feed into... Actually, I guess in this case, only itself. I forgot. It doesn't feed into Zolgoth. To get into Zolgoth, you would need to go get your weapon going and have that feed into the purple into your Zolgoth. So this is mostly just a Elder Dragon spam team, and just doing that over and over again, with Zolgoth mostly being there for cleanup then. As far as the Underspire low rarity team, we're using Deep Golem once again to end up tanking, as it will be your overall best cheap tank option, since you can just get it from throwing some Chaos Shards at Dugoroth, get it really easily. This is a Karakoth event week, so you can easily get any Explodey resummon weapon. There are two of them, I think. One of them, is this the only one? I think this is the only one, because it had to go the exact same color, which is not ideal. But hopefully they get another one in the future. But yeah, this is, I believe, the only Explodey weapon from the kingdom. So if you're going to get one weapon from Soulforge this week, this is probably the one. Aside from getting all the Flower Dragon stuff, but you know what I mean. As far as the ones limited to this week, this is probably the one that you would end up going for, as it does have a bunch of... it has your resummon that you need. A bunch of mana accumulation and a resummon. So just have that going for it. Because the other weapon that we end up doing earlier, this one does not have resummon. There's a lot of mana accumulation on it, but this is the double gem creation one, rather than the mana accumulation resummon one. So if you do want that backup option, it is your only option this week. And of course, similar to the other team, you can end up just using Near as your main damage source. Has a bunch of true damage, you keep poking them down. Won't be the quickest thing in the world, but it'll definitely get the job done all the way through if you had to. You'd even double up on it if you really want to go and focus a little bit more on damage instead of survivability. But earlier in the game, you'll probably need the extra survivability over Golem and stuff like that, which is why we're going the extra resummon, the extra barrier, the extra durability, everything like that. And just using Near as our main damage source, and then our Eldritch minion to go and get the ball rolling by giving a bunch of purple to both the Deep Golem and to your Near, and you just keep going and spamming your weapon, you should be good to go. As far as... oh yeah, and then the rest is Guild War team, which of course we just went over. And all of those teams will be in the description below if you need to go and use any of them. You may have noticed there was no Flower Dragon teams there. That is because I haven't opened them yet. So of course, if we go to Soulforge, we finally, as of today, have the Flower Dragon. Surprisingly, they're kind of expensive, 600 each. It's actually, I believe, have a higher max damage than Stellaryx, but it's very situational when you end up bringing it out. Let me actually go show them all. So, of course, here are all 6 of the flower dragons. However, the better way to go show it is if we go clear this, go click show all, and go type in, I guess, flowers, because you can end up getting to each one this way. If you ever want to see what the gem dragons are, type in gems with a space between it. This guy also got that trait, so he also shows up. He's not one of them. Ignore that one. But you can do that to go show those. If you want to see the cosmic dragons, you type in cosmics with S. Or sorry, cosmics. Wait, is it not? Oh, I forgot the S. Let's see. There we go, yeah. Cosmics, because Cosmic Shield. And then, gosh, I forgot the other S. And then, of course, if you want to see the flower dragons, you type in flowers with a space there. So here are all of the flower dragons that just came in today. So, of course, as far as... I love the Sphinx Troop art. It's definitely my favorite one out of all of them. So, as far as what they all do, they all have 25% spell reduction and 35% skull damage reflect. This is kind of interesting because they have no skull reduction. So they are by far the weakest when it comes to skull spam as far as taking them out, as both of the other two have skull reductions to some degree. If we go over to gem dragons, they end up having a skull reduction of 55%. And even the celestial dragons, when we go to the cosmic dragons, they end up getting a 30%. Not as big as their spell reduction shield, but definitely still pretty solid. It's kind of interesting because even though they have a little bit of spell reduction, they are by far the least tanky out of any of the dragons we've had up to this point when it comes to these. So that is worth considering. Obviously, there will still be a lot of restrictions where you do end up utilizing them, but they are the most prone to death out of any we have ever had up to this point, while still having like a little bit extra durability there. But that's pretty much the whole premise there. 25% spell reduction, a bunch of reflect on the skulls, and they get to steal a little bit of life when matching blue gems. I haven't actually seen this yet, but if it's anything like Yagway and that one glitch that I believe still hasn't been fixed in several years yet, there is a weird glitch, which I'm pretty sure has not been resolved, though maybe it has, where if you kill something with life steal damage off of your trait, most notable with Yagway, he tends to trigger it the most, but with anything in the entire game, it will end up doing a weird lag effect at the end of a battle that wastes about a second or so, like a second or two. So there's a lot of times when you're quick killing where this effect could actually be really bad, assuming that bug is still in the game. So it is worth considering if you're like mass farming. So this is probably going to be used a little bit less for that. I believe it also has pretty comparable damage to that of Stellaryx. I believe it's slightly higher, but it's only so slightly higher that Stellaryx is already hitting every single damage range that you'd probably already be hitting with this. So I don't really see too much of a use case where you would actually bring it out, oddly enough. There are some weird situations where right now... oh, that reminds me. One thing I did not mention for the Guild Wars stuff. You cannot use Wand of Stars or Stellaryx defensively. It will get replaced with Prismatic Orb for Wand, and it will get replaced with... Christina... Not Christina. What's that one called? Diamantina. And it would get replaced with Diamantina for Stellaryx. So you do not want to end up using Stellaryx or Wand for any of your defend teams for this upcoming Guild War. Do not set it, as they'll get replaced with something really absurdly weak. With that being said, though, I don't believe this is currently working on the Flower Dragon. So you actually are able to use something basically just slightly weaker than Stellaryx as your main option. On whenever you have a dragon restriction or an elemental restriction or a nexus restriction. Actually, there's no nexus restriction for it. But, you know, if you have an elemental dragon or any color restriction, like, you know, the final battle, you are currently able to use this, but you are not able to use Stellaryx. So do be mindful of that when setting your defend teams if you are going to go down that route, as you basically have to use this instead of Stellaryx now. They probably will change it so you're not allowed to use this either. As far as what it does, it deals a bunch of damage to all enemies, and then explodes all skulls, and then there's a 10% chance for an extra turn, boosted by skulls exploded. Biggest issue with this, its extra turn potential is actually worse. Compared to something like Stellaryx and such, it has a bit of a lower extra turn potential. It is a lot more dependent on a lot of skulls being on the board, because not only is all of its mana accumulation based on how many skulls are on the board, but of course, as per usual, its percent chance of extra turn is also based on how many skulls are on the board. So I feel like there's actually, this is just weaker Stellaryx overall. There are some niche situations where you're probably going to bring it out. But overall, if you had to choose like 1-to-1 in any team, if you're using this or Stellaryx, you're probably still using Stellaryx 9 out of 10 times. There are situations where, of course, you could use them both together if you want. Just have two different variable abilities and everything. I believe this thing also hits slightly harder, so there will be some really niche situations where I believe this has a ever so slightly higher max hits compared to Stellaryx. There's also potentially the synergy within Nexus, as almost all of Nexus is elemental, and this thing is a elemental as well, so it does have better in-kingdom synergy than Stellaryx, oddly enough, because if I'm not mistaken, Stellaryx is from Volpacia, which in-kingdom synergy-wise has basically 0, whereas the gosh, I still don't know how to say that, by the way. The Chrysantherax. I know it's a flower right there. So it's Chrysantherax. Yeah, Chrysantherax. There we go. Gosh, that is a flower name. That is quite the word of a flower. But anyways, I know it's a real flower, but I cannot pronounce that. Anyways, what was I going on tangent about? But it has way better in-kingdom synergy. Like, its synergy in Nexus is so much better than Stellaryx and Volpacia. So in that kind of situation, it will be better, like whenever you're in like a Nexus restriction. But when it comes to Guild War, that's not really too relevant. When it comes to PvP, I don't feel like that's relevant. Like, when's the last time anyone has voted for like the Nexus restriction at a given location? I don't know. Maybe it'll be more often now that we have this, but I know it would have to be like a weird situation where it's like Volpacia versus Nexus, in which case, oh yeah, you would definitely want to do Nexus instead because the synergies is a little bit better. But overall, I don't know. I really love their designs, particularly the blue one. But I just don't really see too much of a use case. They're pretty flimsy compared to the other ones. And there's going to be a lot of situations where ultimately you're still using Stellaryx instead. But also, one other thing to keep in mind, it has a higher mana cost. If we go over to Cosmic Dragons again, it has a 2 higher mana cost than Stellaryx, which might not sound like a lot, but it definitely adds up. Having 2 whole lower can definitely make quite a bit of a difference, since you don't end up getting the, I don't know. It's still covering every color, so you're mana accumulating so much that 2 is relatively trivial. It's just that combined with how inconsistent his mana accumulation is going to be. Like, how often are you getting a lot of skulls on the board is basically the main thing. Like, you need to go do a skull storm perpetually onto the board for this to really be viable. Whereas Stellaryx, you know, you basically never ever end up needing a storm for him. Like, you could if you wanted to, but you could do whatever you want. Like, he does not need a skull storm to be able to function, like, at all. Whereas that thing, you're definitely going to have to build it a lot more around it, rather than just plopping on a team. Like, Stellaryx is one of those things similar to Wand, where you just plop it on the team and it immediately works. You cannot do that with the You cannot do that with the Chrysantherax. Whereas you can do it with Stellaryx. But anyways, that's the final verdict on that. We'll be doing the key, or I shouldn't say key opening. We'll be doing the egg opening for them later. However, one thing I will do the key opening for is, as far as Karakoth drop table, of course, we have Karakoth as the drop table and random mythic. Nice. That's not what I'm looking for, though. What I'm looking for is to see if we can get the legend. I don't believe it's in drop table yet, but I figured we'd throw a few just to see. Yeah, if we didn't get it yet, we wouldn't have gotten it. Alright, we're definitely not getting it. You know what? Just for good luck, let's do one more. Yeah, he's definitely not in drop table. So what I was checking for is, of course, the event key drop table this week. As far as the event key drop table is concerned, it is the following, if I could get there. We need base rarity, we need, not all kingdoms, we need specifically Karakoth, as it is a Karakoth event week, and then show all. So, as far as Karakoth is concerned, everything that is and is not in drop table includes the following. The Mizmer is still currently a discontinued troop. It will eventually be coming into Guild War in some way, shape, or form, but as it currently stands, it is basically discontinued. If you do not have it, you cannot currently get it through any means ever. This will change in the future, however, it is currently discontinued at the moment. Beyond that, though it will be coming back eventually. The 5 troops from Dugoroth are all from the Dugoroth faction. You'd have to throw Chaos Shards there to end up getting it. Other things that are not in drop table includes the thing I was checking on, the Slime Dragon. The Slime Dragon is not in drop table yet. It will eventually, like next Karakoth event, it should be in event queue drop table. But this current event, it seems to not be in drop table from what I can tell, unless I got absurdly lucky there. But after 600 keys, we got 0 Slime Dragon, so I assume he is not in drop table yet. Other thing that is not in drop table is the Abraxas. This is from the current Invasion event. You can only get him from this current Invasion event. Next Karakoth event, similarly, he will be in drop table, but this current event, he is not in drop table, similar to the Slime Dragon, but both of them should be coming in on the next time that Karakoth rotates around. But for this particular one, similar to any time when they come out initially, he is not in drop table. Beyond that, other things that are not in drop table mostly just include Zolgoth. Of course, Zolgoth you need to go craft with 8 power orbs. So to be able to go get him, you would need to go and get 8 power orbs, craft him in Soulforge, end up getting him that way. You cannot end up getting him from a Venki drop table. The only 3 that you can end up getting with that is the Deathlock Draliak, which is better true damages out there, so he very, very, very rarely ever gets used. Actually, never mind, he's not even true damage. Yeah, this guy's really bad. Wait, I forgot, he's just kind of like a weird AoE. Yeah, he's like just really behind all the flower dragons and everything else. There's not much use keys for him. As far as the Elder Dragon, you saw us using it for Underspire. Pretty good loop. It's similar to all the Elomagrim troops, except it does it based on curse gems, based on curse. Unlike all the other ones, he actually does his stats affect himself. So instead of needing like a burn off another troop or a blast off your allies or something, this guy already supplies all the curse you ever need. So his first cast will be potentially a little bit bad if he's your only cursor. But beyond that, you have perpetual 4x curse on the opposing team while having the full 13 mana accumulation. So once he gets going, he's really, really, really good. He also gets to eliminate a bunch of magic from all enemies, which in some situations can actually be pretty good. This is a little slow later in the game when magic values are really high. But if you're getting a lot of extra turn, this does stack, by the way, if you have 2 or 3 of them. But yeah, 3 magic away from all enemies, this could definitely be a lot of value over time, especially since even in endgame, you're generally dealing with like, what, 50, 60, 70, 80 magic values normally. So if you had 2 of them on your team and you just got several extra turns, there goes almost their entire magic stat. And given that you're going to be looping him anyways into himself, he can get magic really, really low into the opposing team and make it so it's not as big of a deal. And of course, as you saw us get from the event queue drop table, Vashtagan is also here. It's basically worse Black Beast. It devours an ally and it just gains a bunch of stats, does a bunch of true damage. Very situational when you end up bringing this out. Overall, its most notable thing is that it has impervious into curse. But there are so many better ways to curse these days, most notably Wand, that you don't really ever tend to bring out Vashtagan unless you're under a really, really weird restriction. Even under a Karakoth week and a Daemon week, you are very unlikely to ever really utilize him. So he just doesn't really have a place. Maybe if he had like a 3rd category or something. But he's just not much of a place in the current state of the game. You'd mostly only ever use it in a Karakoth or Daemon situation where you don't have anything else as a curse option, and you would need to use him as a curse option. But beyond that, unless you're doing like a really big gimmick team with him, which is kind of fun, he does have a few fun gimmick teams he could do with devouring something really boosted up with HP, and then doing just like a big boost ratio, as he is one of the few life boost ratio troops in the game that's not useless. But life boost ratios compared to armor boost ratios when compared to like Tesla and stuff, it just takes so much to build it up compared to Tesla, where all you have to do with Tesla is, you know, click her and you win. So compared to that, he requires so much more setup to do basically the exact same thing Tesla can already do like 10 turns before him. So might be really bulky and everything and really good at not dying, but he's really slow if you compare him to other alternatives like Tesla, so very, very rarely used. Overall, long story short, probably not worth using event keys this week. Pretty skippable week. I mostly just wanted to check to see if the guy was in drop table, and from what I could tell, he is not. I just wanted to double check, and yeah, he seems to not be, or we are absurdly unlucky, but I assume he's not in there. Beyond that, campaign's coming near an end, so definitely make sure to keep doing that. This is the second to last week to go finish out the campaign, as well as the last Magic Deed book to end up getting, oddly enough. Also on the free side, so if you haven't been doing it, yeah, get that on the free side as well. So second to last week to go finish that out, so if you still want to go and get any rewards or anything, of course, the very easy daily thingies, go get those done and get all the rewards from that. Beyond that, what else have we not gone over? Oh yeah, other things we have going on this week. So this Tuesday, we have ourselves the faction event for Dugoroth, which we mentioned, brown, purple restriction. Wednesday, we have one of those chalice thingies. I actually forgot which one this pet is for, but I assume it's something for the kingdom of Karakoth. Definitely looks pretty Karakoth heavy. Well, obviously, it's a Karakoth week. Thursday, we have ourselves the class event for Sorcerer. Pretty underwhelming. It's basically everything Archmagus wishes it was, or other way around. Archmagus is everything Sorcerer wish it was. It's trying to be a cast-oriented hero class, but doesn't do that at all. It is very dated, very useless, and yeah, you pretty much should never use this class other than outside the context of an event week like this. And even in the context of an event week like this, you probably still don't even use it and just use Archmagus instead, which of course the teams also, for copy-paste, end up using Archmagus instead. And this Friday, or technically this Thursday, we have ourselves the Guild War starting, which does mean on the first day we actually have a double event, the Clash Trial and Guild War happening at the same time. But yeah, the weekend event for this weekend is Guild War itself, so do be mindful of that. However, do be mindful, it starts on Thursday, not Friday. So unlike arena events and most other weekly events or weekend events that start on a Friday, this does start midweek on the Clash Trial on Thursday, so do not forget about it. And also do not forget to set your one singular defend team. You can do that 2 days prior when it comes to your guild. And as far as 2 days prior is concerned, that means you would have to go do it within tomorrow. Or, you know, once that time says 2 days or less, is when you can go set all your defend teams for your keep. So don't forget to go do that underneath here, and then go under guild's keep, and then go set a defend. And if you're lower in stats compared to the average of your guild, do it to the left side of the river. And if you're higher in stats, do it closer to the palace, or even on the palace itself, and go set teams on the upper end where you'd end up having more stats. But make sure you set one of those teams before Guild Wars end up starting at some point between 2 days and right before it ends up triggering to go set all of your defend teams. Beyond that, yeah, the weekly troop. So let's go to the weekly troop real quick. So you know what I'm going to start doing for these? Because we kind of mentioned it some the other week, and I kind of want to go do it again. Mention what the troop would need to not be completely dead content. Like, what would be the bare minimum to make this, like, at least average or at least slightly usable? So, of course, we got another dead content glory troop. What's new? The Shadow Wraith, blue-purple from Karakoth. It deals some damage to a random enemy because it's blind. So it does it randomly. Thematically, it works. And if they use purple mana, it gets half of its mana back. It has stealthy and basically nothing else going for it. So what would you need to do to make this viable? So he is hitting a random enemy, so we'll keep that theme. He ends up getting a bunch of mana back for if they're purple. So obviously we keep that. He's supposed to be using like a purple kind of restriction, like if you're doing a purple team versus a purple team. Two big issues here. One is that bare minimum needs to be all of his mana, 100% of it. The fact that it only gives half is so bad, given that he has no follow-up at all. The second thing would be, make it so he actually has follow-up. So give him something like a 50 to about 80% chance that he ends up extra turning. In the case of, let's say, a 75% extra chance, let's say he gains all of his mana back and has a 75% chance to extra turn. You know what that is at that point? He is basically just an AoE troop that randomly hits. And this is if the team is full purple. Let's say the team is 100% 4 purple right now. Like, you know, if it's even worse than that, if it's only 3 purple or 2 purple. But let's say, hypothetically, the entire enemy team is 4 purple. If you give him a 100% mana back whenever he hits a purple enemy, and a 75% chance to extra turn, that basically just turns his ability into full AoE. That's it. Except it can multi-poke. So it might hit one enemy 3 times and one other enemy once, or something similar. But is effectively doing the same damage if you just had a ability that said, hit all enemies. And there's already troops that can guarantee gain all of their mana back really easily. Gosh, what's that one pirate called that has like 12 mana? She can end up doing that over and over and over again, because as soon as you have the gold, you automatically get it. Her issue, of course, is having no extra turn follow-up, so you always have to give up your turn every time. But this guy also gives up his turn every time. He doesn't even get all of his mana. It's only half. So it's basically just a worst case scenario of that. Plus it's random, so you don't even get to choose what gets damaged. But yeah, that would be the bare minimum of what it would need to be viable. And even then, it would probably still not be used. It would need 100% of its mana whenever it hits a purple. It would gain 100% of its mana back. And give it about a 75% chance to extra turn. Give it about a 1 in 4 chance then that it would end up failing, which gives it about the same equivalence of AoE damages with a different distribution overall. But yeah, that would make it fun to use. It would actually be, you know, somewhat usable. It'd still be dead content. Like, you would just run Atlanta and it would already do that better in most situations. Just run Atlanta, and you're good to go. But that would at least make it not completely dead upon arrival. It would only be partially dead upon arrival, but even with that, it would still not be used. Obviously, that's just like getting it to the average state. To make it good, you would have to probably make it, honestly, like 90%. Though that would be really annoying to use because you have to keep clicking it over and over and over and over and over again, which could get kind of tedious because you have to click them, then click them, then click them. But I don't know, I've been wanting a trip like that for a while. We've gotten a couple that are kind of like that. Raven, actually, oddly enough, when they ended up reworking him, was kind of like that, but I think they only gave him 9 out of 10 of his mana, so he's always like that 1 mana short with like no way to get it back up. But it's a fun premise, having something that can kind of keep refiring over and over again. These keep casting. Truffle's kind of like that for AoE, where it has auto extra turn, bunch of mana accumulation to himself, stuff like that. Even Beatrix to some degree in a similar way. But having it for single target stuff, they've tried dabbling on this multiple times, but have never gone and committed far enough to actually ever make it viable. And I hope it's something they do in the future, because it's a fun premise of an ability. It just, this variant of it is one of the worst that exists in the game of the category of that kind of troop, compared to all the other alternatives between Raven, that one pirate, other similar things. It just does not do that kind of concept that well. I know it's only an ultra rare, and obviously it's supposed to be a little bit worse because it's only ultra rare. Everything else we mentioned was like an epic or above, but still, you can still make them somewhat useful. But anyways, guys, I think that's going to wrap it up for now. If you still have any other questions about Guild War or anything else, feel free to leave in the comment section below. Tonight, of course, as is tradition for, hey, Trippy Trading, as is tradition when it comes to the eggs, we will be opening up all of the Flower Dragon eggs. We will not stop until we have them all. and we'll probably cover a video tomorrow going over teams for them, as they were distinctly missing from this video just because we don't have them yet, and I do kind of want to test with them a little bit before we go with teams. Who knows, maybe they're a lot better than I think, but from what I could tell, they're just slightly weaker cosmic dragons. There's still a lot of times we're going to be using them. One other thing to mention that I didn't actually bring up when we were doing them too, which I might as well mention right now since we're still kind of talking about them. Wait, what? Oh yeah, show all. One thing to kind of mention about them is where they're located. A lot of these are really good. I kind of mentioned that with Nexus for the Chrysanthemix. However, a lot of these other ones are actually located in pretty good locations overall. So Forest of Thorns, the green dragon, already you have a lot of green going for that kingdom, so it already has direct synergy there. Nexus, absurdly good. The whole place is basically elemental. Actually, I think it's like 95, 100% elemental. It's something absurdly high. So to have another, you know, absurdly good elemental to go with that, really, really nice. But there's also some other really interesting ones as far as where they are. Like kingdoms that needed more dragons that have partial dragon synergy, but now have even further dragon synergy. The two biggest ones I would say are the purple dragon and the brown dragon in that regard. Though I wish this one was the red one. But the purple dragon's in Sword's Edge. You know what other dragon has direct synergy with that? Shadow Dragon. Shadow Dragon converts yellow to purple while, you know, getting all the purples you need, and boom, you're good to go. You have a double dragon synergy there now. But it's a location that's desperately, like, partially dragon. I've been needing a lot more dragons for a while, and this actually has some pretty good synergy with some of the stuff that's already there. And beyond that, I would say the biggest beneficiary of any of them, not counting the Nexus one, or, you know, not counting, like, the main big one of 6 color, but of the 6 other ones, I think the biggest beneficiary is actually Shentang, oddly enough. Shentang is already partially dragon-based. It's not primarily. It's like the secondary, third-ish character or category of type in that kingdom. But it is definitely in the kingdom, and there's some decent dragon synergy you can end up getting out of it. And this is kind of the thing it needs to kind of put it together. You can even do it with things that aren't the dragons, of course, like Yalgwei with green-red. It's doing pretty good because it denies all purple, which is one that neither of them are using, while also feeding red into both of them, which is one of the main reasons why I said I wish you used red instead, as it would actually be a lot stronger if this was red, as it would directly have even more synergy with Yalgwei than what's already there. As brown is nice that he's covering the color for that kingdom, but I don't really feel like there's much of a way to really utilize like brown creation in that kingdom compared to some other colors that end up getting created there. But yeah, he's definitely the biggest beneficiaries of location as far as the non-primary one, or, you know, the non-6 color one. I would say he's probably the biggest beneficiary. Sword's Edge one being the second biggest, Forest of Thorns probably being the third, and the rest, you know, they'll be used occasionally. The problem with the Golvania one is there's already so much AoE true damage, which generally is going to probably be better than this more often than not, assuming you have like everything from the kingdom. You're probably using true damage synergy rather than this thing's physical damage. Pan's could be okay, but Pan's has gotten really, really skull heavy lately, and this thing is very weak to skull, so unless you really want some AoE for some kind of round, you're probably not using it much for Pan's. And then beyond that, Zolkari, I don't know, this one could maybe be using Zolkari. Zolkari is also somewhat true damage these days, but it might have some synergy. The only thing really weird about it being in Zolkari is blue. Blue, like, Zolkari does not have blue. As far as, like, you know, spamming blues onto the board. Like, it's not really a blue-oriented kingdom. That's the biggest issue with a couple of these as far as where they were placed. I feel like some of them were kind of placed weirdly as far as coloration. Other than Forest of Thorns and Sword's Edge, those two kind of make sense. Actually, even the yellow one for Pansvale is mostly the other three that I feel like are a little bit weirdly placed as far as kingdom to color synergy. And they still could have done it too. Like, if these two swapped colors, would be at least a little bit better. Like, you know, having red here and having brown here instead. But I don't know, just a little bit weird where some of them end up getting placed overall. But that's our final verdict on that. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below. All the teams are in the description and pinned comment if you need them for Guild War or anything else. If you still have any other questions about anything, definitely feel free to ask. Or if you need clarification, as we didn't go over like everything with Guild War, more so just like the, you know, the more important bulk of it. But there are some other details as far as like the exact scoring and stuff. It's just we've already gone over it so many times, I feel like, in every stream and video recently, that if you really want to go check them, let's see, can I bring it up right here? Let's see. They have a billion different posts on it on their thing, as far as on their website, as far as like the full breakdown of every single thing, how like the teams work, how every single little bit of scoring. They literally have like the whole algorithm of how the ELO system works, which of course is a little bit too nitpicky to really go into. All you really need to know is don't lose. Like, there's a bunch of extra things that contribute to your score, like these things right over here. But just don't lose, and you're getting basically all the points you need. Unless you're competing at, like, the top end of guilds, like the top 10 guilds, you probably don't need to worry about anything other than make sure you don't lose and make sure you evenly distribute your battles, both offensively and defensively, for the one that you defend on. as well as all the battles that you do offensively with your guild, so you maximize a little bit more points. But beyond that, and if you're wondering why I always say distribute, it's because of this. Collecting a set of conquests, aka doing all of them once, gives you 1,000 extra points. And whenever I say to evenly offensively distribute, this is generally what I'm referring to, is you get an extra 1,000 points every single time your guild as a whole kills out one of every single room. So you will have to take those annoying rooms like Goblin, Dragon, a few other ones like that. You are forced to have to take them. You could probably take them slightly less depending on where some of your losses are in your guild. You might be able to get away with taking them ever so slightly less, as it only works if you have a full set. So if you have some at, you know, like, I don't know, like 7 wins and some other ones only at 5, and that Goblin one is at 5, you're probably still gonna have to go for that Goblin one. But depending on where you're at, it might make it so you don't have to do it as much. But basically, try to evenly distribute so you can get as many of these 1,000 bonuses as you can as far as a guild, which gives you gold marks, which goes and increases by your morale, gives you a bunch of extra things, and you can go from there. And of course, that was the buff I was referring to too. The later you put your teams, the more buffs you get. Earlier on, you don't get nearly as many buffs. So make sure that your stronger people are on the closer to the palace on the right side of the river, and then have everyone else on the closer to the gate on the left side of the river. And yeah, go from there. Anyways, guys, that'll wrap it up for now. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching, and best of luck if you're going to be going for the flower dragons. We'll be doing that tonight, and cover the video tomorrow, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get lucky. As the first time around, it took us like 20-something, high 20-something. Second time around, we got the perfect sweep of 6, so we'll see if we get like an in-between this time, like 12 to 15 or so, and we'll go from there. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for watching.